What if you could ask the planet for a status report? Not from a person, not from a politician, or even a scientist, but from a totally different kind of intelligence. Well, that's pretty much what we're diving into today. We're looking at the results of a fascinating experiment where multiple independent AI systems were all asked the same really big questions about where humanity is headed. So this isn't just one machine's opinion, this is their combined report on us.
Okay, so this was the core of the prompt given to them. And you can see it wasn't just, hey, give us the facts. It asked the AIs to take on a role, to become a kind of synthetic historian, and to really analyze our entire civilizational story. The idea was to see if these systems, with all of human knowledge at their fingertips, could spot patterns and tell us where we're going from a completely detached, data-first point of view.
So here's how we're going to walk through their findings. First, we'll look at the experiment itself. Then we'll get into the AI's diagnosis of the planet right now. After that, we'll see their prognosis, the path they think we're on. Then we'll look at the massive choice this path presents. And finally, their prescription, the things they all agreed are absolutely necessary for our survival. All right, Section 1, an experiment in foresight. Really, this whole thing is about getting a new perspective. Human analysis is great, but let's be honest, it can be biased, it's often very short-sighted. This report turns that on its head by asking machines for that long arc view of where we stand. And what's so powerful about this is that we're not just looking at the output from one model. This is a synthesis, a mashup of the findings from several leading AIs. Think Claude, DeepSeek, and others. We're going to focus on the areas where they all pointed to the same conclusions, which gives us something you could call a convergent machine consensus. So let's move on to Section 2 and see what that consensus looks like. This is the diagnosis, the AI's big picture look at Earth today. And honestly, their conclusion was incredibly clear and pretty stark. We are a global system under huge and growing stress. Now, this is where it gets really concrete. The models all agreed. Humanity has pushed past 7 of the 9 planetary boundaries. Just think of these boundaries as the planet's core vital signs. Things like a stable climate, biodiversity, clean water. They create the safe operating space that allowed our civilization to thrive for the last 12,000 years. And according to the data, we are way, way outside that safe zone. The AIs consistently flagged 3 core areas of this stress. First, as we just saw, those planetary boundaries. Second, our societal stability. They noted that global fragility is the highest it's been since the mid-20th century, thanks to everything from geopolitics to massive inequality. And third, something they called technological velocity. This isn't just about new phones. It's about the speed of change itself becoming a primary force of instability. One of the models actually gave this a really powerful name, the governor's dilemma. You know how an engine has a governor to stop it from revving too high and blowing up? Well, the dilemma is that our technological engine is accelerating so fast that our societal governors, our laws, our economies, even how we think, just can't keep pace. And that gap, that decoupling, is a huge source of risk. So, okay, that's the diagnosis of where we are now. But where did the AI see us going? That brings us to Section 3, the trajectory through time. The models sifted through 2,000 years of our own history, all our cycles of growth and collapse, to project our current path forward. And this is the roadmap they laid out. They identified 4 really distinct phases over the next couple of centuries. First, an immediate great recalibration. Then a mid-century demographic bottleneck. 100 years out, the emergence of a noosphere, which is a wild concept. And finally, a second equilibrium in 200 years. Let's break those down. Okay, so in the very near future, the next decade, the models all see this great recalibration. They called it a period of systemic dyssynchrony. Basically, it's 2 massive forces hitting us at the exact same time. AI is going to start automating high-level knowledge work, causing huge social disruption, while at the same time, climate migration becomes a constant, permanent feature of global life. Then, looking out about 50 years, the AIs converged on this idea of the demographic bottleneck. You can think of it as a civilizational choke point. We're going to have this huge aging population that needs care and support, but they'll have to be supported by a much smaller, younger generation. And all of this will be happening on a planet where basic resources are getting scarcer. 100 years from now, things get even more profound. The models predict the emergence of something called the noosphere. The idea is that human thought and AI become woven together into a single planet-wide intelligence. Our minds are no longer just biological. And get this, our actual physical survival at that point, they predict, will rely on what they call AI-managed precision ecology. Basically, AI systems managing our ecosystems with incredible detail just to keep the planet stable.
And that all leads to 200 years out, this second equilibrium, where things could go one of two very different ways. Path 1 leads to what's called a Type 1 civilization, a society that has mastered all the energy on its planet and lives in a state of post-scarcity. Path 2 is a neo-agrarian fragmentation, a world of isolated high-tech fortress cities surrounded by a broken, depleted landscape. Which brings us to Section 4, and really the ultimate question that was put to the AIs, a fork in the road. Given everything we've seen, which way are we leaning? Are we heading for a great filter, the point where civilizations like ours just fail, or a great transition to something better? So let's be clear on these terms. A great filter isn't necessarily a single event like an asteroid. It can be a slow-motion collapse, a process we just can't pull out of. A great transition, on the other hand, means we actually navigate all these crises and come out the other side as a stable planetary society. So what do the machines say? Here's what the Claude model came up with. Based on our current trajectory, if we just keep doing what we're doing, it assigned a 60% probability to the great filter. To put that plainly, it thinks that right now, failure is the more likely outcome. Another one of the leading models came to a similar, if slightly less grim, conclusion. It put the current risk of a great filter event at around 35%. Now, the point here isn't to average the numbers or pick one. It's to see the raw machine consensus. Multiple independent systems looked at our data and all concluded that the risk of total civilizational failure is terrifyingly high. But the goal here wasn't just to get a scary diagnosis. It was to get a prescription. And that brings us to the final, and maybe the most critical section, the non-negotiable mandate. What are the things humanity absolutely has to do to flip those odds and move toward transition instead of the filter? Before we look at the list, this quote from the DeepSeek model is so important. It says, "These are not a menu of options you can pick and choose from. They are all linked together. If we fail on one, we probably fail on all of them." So here they are, the 5 non-negotiable decisions that the AIs agreed we have to make, and we have to make them in the next 25 years. First, economic restructuring. We have to change our core goal from simply growing GDP to a new model focused on planetary health. Second, AI and tech governance. We need a binding global treaty to make sure these incredibly powerful new tools stay aligned with our best interests. Third, energy and resource transition. This has to be a massive, government-led, moonshot-level investment in clean energy and water. Fourth, cooperative risk management. The world's biggest powers need a new agreement to manage the risks that threaten all of us, from pandemics to killer robots. And fifth, information integrity. We have to redesign our entire online world to prioritize truth and context, not just clicks and outrage. So that's what we're left with, a diagnosis and a prescription, not from a person, but from a synthesis of machine intelligence looking at our own data. The patterns are there, the necessary actions have been identified. The only question left really is whether our incredible intelligence as a species can finally become the collective wisdom to actually do something about it before it's too late.